Hello again everyone, and welcome back to Learn Linux TV. In today's video, we're going to check out the latest release of Crunchbang++, which is a super lightweight spin of Debian that essentially no one is using, and that's a shame because it's very awesome, and we're going to take a look at this distribution in this video. Now, Crunchbang++ is a continuation of Crunchbang itself, which unfortunately met its end sometime in 2015. And that was a really sad day for me because Crunchbang was one of my favorite distributions, something that I featured on this channel early in the life of this channel. So again, that was really sad. Thankfully, Crunchbang++, as well as another distribution by the name of Bunsen Labs, they keep the spirit of Crunchbang alive. So as sad as it was to see Crunchbang go, I'm not sad anymore because we have other distributions that are basically keeping the spirit alive. But what exactly is Crunchbang? That's a really weird name for a distribution. Well, let's go ahead and dive in, and I'll show you. And here it is. Crunchbang++ is installed fresh on my hard disk, and it's ready to go. Now, real quick, I wanted to mention that I had to lower the resolution of my display down to 1080p. So if it looks blurry or strange at all, well, that's why. So why did I lower the resolution? Well, I'll talk about why later on in the review. Anyway, here's Crunchbang++ in all its glory. Now you might be thinking that the layout is very simple, and if that's what you're thinking, well, you're right. Crunchbang itself has always been a lightweight and super simple distribution, and since Crunchbang++ is a continuation of Crunchbang itself, then it makes sense that it's also lightweight and features a very simple layout. Now we have this welcome screen right here, which I'll be covering later on in the video, so I'm going to minimize that for now. As you can see, the desktop is, well, empty. We actually have a Conky display here on the right, which is awesome. I mean, when's the last time you saw a Conky in a distribution? Anyway, we have a panel up here at the top, and it actually has two tabs, as you can see. Each tab is a workspace. We have a system tray up here on the upper right, along with the clock. And if you click on the clock, it shows a calendar, as you would probably expect. But how do you launch an application? I mean, where's the Applications menu? Well, actually, the Applications menu is available via right-click. So you right-click anywhere on the screen, anywhere that's empty, and as you can see, wherever the mouse cursor is and you right-click, that's actually where the Applications menu or the Open Box menu will show up. Now, I'll go more into detail about what all that means in just a moment, but real quick, we have all the applications that you would expect in a distribution right here from the start. So if I click on Web Browser, here's Firefox. So as you can see, Firefox is the default browser. Of course, we have a terminal emulator as well. And I really like this one. This is Terminator. So let me go ahead and minimize this. Terminator is awesome. You can think of Terminator like Tmux in your GUI. And Tmux itself is a terminal multiplexer that I've featured videos on this channel for quite a few times now. But you can right-click anywhere on the terminal. Actually, I'll just make it full screen first. But you can right-click anywhere here. You can split it vertically. You could also split it horizontally. So this is pretty cool. You could essentially just have multiple terminals in one window. And Terminator itself is my terminal emulator of choice, even on GNOME. So Terminator is something that I install on pretty much every installation of Linux that I have. In addition to that, for the text editor, we have Geany. And Geany itself is my #1 favorite GUI text editor, another application that I make sure I have installed on every computer. And one of the things that I love about Geany is that it has really good support for programming languages built right in. So right here, we have a build menu. We have options such as make. We also have an option for execute as well. So if you're writing a script or something like that, you can execute it right from here. Now, this isn't a programming tutorial or anything like that, so showing you that in more detail is a bit outside the scope of this video. But the point is, Geany is a full-featured text editor and is something that I consider an essential application whenever I set up a new Linux install. Of course, we have a media player. And in this case, it's actually VLC. But there's other applications that are worth checking out as well. For example, FileZilla, HexChat. We already went over VLC. You have an application for burning optical media, if you still do that kind of thing. We have GIMP built in. So pretty much everything you need out of the box is already here. And what I love most about it is that this distro is just fast. I mean, really fast. For the most part, depending on your hardware, most applications will launch instantaneously. My laptop here has an SSD, so let's go ahead and launch another app and let's see how fast it loads. Preferably something that I haven't already opened. So let's open the file manager. Boom. Every now and then I might edit parts of videos that I do on my channel to speed them up a little bit, but I didn't edit that. That's literally how fast the file manager opens up. So here we have Thunar as the default file manager. Let me go ahead and confirm that. And yes, it is definitely Thunar, version 4.16. And that's a pretty good file manager. So again, everything you need is right here out of the box. And it's definitely a very unique setup to say the least. So some of you guys that are watching this video, you're probably wondering, which desktop environment is this, and can I get this installed on other distributions of Linux? Well, yeah, you can install this on other distros, and I'll get more into that later on in the video, but it's actually not using a desktop environment at all. Instead, Crunchbang++ uses a window manager, specifically OpenBox. Now, there's a very important distinction between a desktop environment and a window manager. A window manager is traditionally a component of a desktop environment. A window manager, its job, is to show windows on your screen. That's how you can, open Firefox and then it shows up. You can resize the window, you can maximize it, and things like that. Now, in addition to a window manager, a desktop environment will also include many other things that give you a complete experience. So OpenBox is just actually a window manager, no more, no less. But the thing is, Crunchbang, and now Crunchbang++, it gives you a complete experience with OpenBox as the base. Now, OpenBox itself, like I mentioned, is just a window manager. And that's how I can have this window showing on the screen right here, because OpenBox is taking care of that for me. But we have other components here as well that OpenBox itself normally doesn't even include. For example, here we have a Conky display. That's not part of OpenBox. This panel, that's not part of OpenBox. In fact, this system tray, this clock, none of that is part of OpenBox. These are all customizations and additional software that the developer of Crunchbang++ has included to give you a better experience, essentially quality of life improvements. Now, one thing that is included in OpenBox is the right-click menu. That's an OpenBox thing. So if you were to install OpenBox on another distribution, what you would have is a window manager, the ability to show a window, and you would also have a right-click menu as well. But you wouldn't have this panel, this Conky, this system tray. You wouldn't even have this wallpaper by default. You would have nothing but a blank screen and a right-click menu. So Crunchbang++ features quite a bit of work to make OpenBox act more like a desktop environment, even though it's not a desktop environment. And that's actually what makes Crunchbang++ such an awesome distribution. The quality of life improvements that it gives you are top-notch. So basically, you could benefit from a window manager and the resource savings that come along with using a window manager, but also be able to do things such as connecting to a Wi-Fi network. As you can see right here, I have a menu that I can use to connect to a different Wi-Fi network. That's not something that you normally get in OpenBox, but you do get that here in Crunchbang++. Now, as an aside, Debian, which is what Crunchbang++ is built on, normally doesn't facilitate Wi-Fi adapters that require proprietary drivers. But here, as you can see, I have a listing of Wi-Fi networks. And the thing is, Crunchbang++ builds that right into the distro. And I think that's really important because sometimes getting Wi-Fi to work in Debian can be a pain. But it's not a pain here. I didn't have to install anything. I didn't have to tweak anything. In fact, Wi-Fi was available right from the installer. And that's cool. Now, Crunchbang++ looks very simple, and it is, but there's quite a bit to explore here. For example, right here we have shortcut keys. So, we could actually right-click anywhere on the desktop to launch an application. But with these shortcut keys, we have quick access to some popular applications. For example, if I hold down Super and press W, the web browser appears. That's awesome. If I hold Super and press T, then a terminal window appears. Not to be outdone, I can hold Super and press H, and then we get HTOP. But anyway, the resource usage of Crunchbang is very minimal, which is one of its strong sides. So as simple as Crunchbang++ is, there's a lot to love and a lot to discover. Now earlier in the video, I mentioned that Crunchbang++ was one of two continuations of Crunchbang, the other one being Bunsen Labs. Now Bunsen Labs is also a very cool distribution as well, something that I recommend you check out. But Bunsen Labs, in my opinion, is just not Crunchbang. And what's weird about Bunsen Labs is that it's often considered the official continuation of Crunchbang, which to me makes no sense at all because Bunsen Labs, as great as it went its own direction. So even though it got its start from Crunchbang, it doesn't look like Crunchbang, and like I mentioned, it went its own direction. Now by comparison, Crunchbang++ is almost exactly identical to Crunchbang. So if you are a fan of Crunchbang, then Crunchbang++ keeps the spirit alive, literally. It's exactly the same, but updated on a newer base. Now another thing that I don't like about Bunsen Labs when compared to Crunchbang++ is that Crunchbang++ is almost, if not always, the first on the scene with a new version every time Debian releases a new release of Debian Stable. Debian 11 was released this month in August, and this same month we have Crunchbang++ built on Debian 11. So with Crunchbang++ being the first on the scene with a new release as soon as Debian releases a new version of Stable, and Bunsen Labs not only not being exactly like Crunchbang, but also being late to the party, then in my opinion, Crunchbang++ is absolutely the way to go between the two. But let's rewind a little bit and talk about the installation process. Like other distributions, Crunchbang++ is downloaded as an ISO image. After you write that ISO image to a flash drive and then you boot from it, you're given an option to start in live mode or proceed directly into the installation process. One potential downside here is that if you want to install Crunchbang++, you have to boot directly into the installer. What that means is that you can't just boot into live mode and then later activate the installer from within live mode. It's one or the other. But I guess that's not really a big deal. You could test the distribution in live mode, make sure that all your hardware is working and is compatible, and then if you're satisfied, you just reboot and choose the installer option from the first menu. Another quirk that I noticed with the installation image is that it doesn't automatically log you in when you start it in live mode. On my end, I just guessed when it comes to the username and password. I just typed live for both the username and the password, and it worked. Now, I would have preferred automatic login when it comes to live mode, but now you know the username and password, so I guess it doesn't matter. The installer itself is basically standard Debian with a bit of Crunchbang branding thrown in. If you've ever installed Debian before, then you should have no problem installing Crunchbang++. You simply answer all the questions that it asks you, and that's it. So the installer isn't going to be accused of being the best distro installer out there, but it gets the job done, so it does what it needs to do. And after you install Crunchbang++, you are immediately presented with this welcome screen right here. And I just love the fact that this welcome screen is presented in a terminal window. It's just geeky and fun. But it's also super easy. You just answer the questions that it asks you, and that's all there is to it. So what I'll do is just make this a bit bigger. Make sure you guys are able to see this. So right now it's telling me that I can hit any key to continue. And the first thing it's going to ask me to do is update my package sources, so I'll just press enter. I'll type in my super secret password. And now it's given me an option to install all available package updates, which I'll just press enter to accept the default of yes. Now it's asking me if I would like to enable printer support. I do have a printer, so I'll press enter. Now it's asking me if I'd like to install a Java runtime. And I don't personally have a use for that, so I'll just say no. And on this screen, it's giving me an option to install LibreOffice, which I definitely want, so I'll press enter. And at this point, it's going to give me the option of installing development packages, but I'm just going to say no for now. You can always relaunch this welcome screen at any time by simply typing cbpp-welcome, so I think you get the point. And now Crunchbang++ is fully configured. I went through the welcome screen, and it's ready to go. And what a great distribution Crunchbang++ is. I just love it. So at this point, what I'm going to do is tell you guys the pros and the cons, the things I love, and the things I don't love as much about this distro. And the first thing is that it's just fast. I love how fast Crunchbang++ is. If you're using this on a resource-starved computer, then I think you'll be well served by Crunchbang++ because it stays out of the way, it doesn't saturate your system resources, and that's awesome. Also, if you are a fan of the Crunchbang of old, then you'll especially love Crunchbang++ because it's absolutely a faithful reincarnation of that distribution. And literally all of the charm of Crunchbang is present in this release. It's built on Debian Stable, now Debian 11, the latest version of Debian, so you have the core of Debian at your disposal, and the charm of Crunchbang. I mean, we have all the applications that we could ever want in a distribution. And everything here, like I mentioned earlier, is exactly the way I remember it from the days of old. I mean, when's the last time that you were able to roll up a window? If I just turn my mouse wheel slightly while I'm hovering over a window border, then a window is shaded, which can actually, for some people, be a better alternative than minimizing an application. There's just a lot to love about this distribution. And perhaps the best part is that we have at our disposal the entirety of Debian's software repositories, and with Debian containing what's probably the biggest software repository in the entire Linux community, and that means basically anything that you can install in Debian, you can install here in Crunchbang++ because Crunchbang++ is Debian. So here in Synaptic, we can see here that we have 58,641 packages available. That's what it says down here on the lower left-hand corner. And, well, you could just browse through the different categories here and install whatever you want. And I think having full compatibility with Debian software is one of the great things about Crunchbang++. You have all the software at your disposal, while it's also not saturating your system resources, so your machine should run its absolute fastest in Crunchbang++. So when it comes to downsides, one of the things that I noticed here is that high DPI support is practically non-existent. So I have a 4K display on this laptop right here, and like I mentioned earlier, I had to lower the resolution down to 1080p just to make it show up well in this video. Now the thing is, with enough tweaking, you can actually make Crunchbang++ look fine on a newer high-definition display, but you have to do that work on your own. And the thing is, since Crunchbang++ is built on OpenBox, that means that you have to hand edit all of your configuration files. So if I right-click here on the desktop and I go to Settings, there's a bunch of different subcategories here, and some of these will actually just open the config file. So for example, if I go down here to OpenBox, we do have a GUI config tool that we can use. So we can actually customize some of the preferences here, and that's pretty cool. So for example, I could just increase the number of virtual desktops that we have available. So now I have 4. So we do actually get some control over OpenBox via the GUI, but unfortunately it's a bit inconsistent. Some options here will actually just open the config file. And the thing is, this can be a bit daunting to a new user. But I think the fact that you have to hand edit some configuration files could actually be a positive for some people. If you're an intermediate to advanced user, which is probably what Crunchbang++ targets anyways, then in that case, I'm sure you probably don't mind hand editing config files. Also, if you're a beginner and also a control freak at the same time with a bit of patience, then you probably won't mind hand editing config files either. Now, one positive about this is that once you do hand edit the configuration files and make the changes that you want to make, you can basically back up those config files to a safe place like a flash drive or even version control. And then if you ever reinstall Crunchbang++ in the future, you just copy those files back to Crunchbang in the appropriate places, and then you're good to go. So essentially, you only have to go through that pain one time, and then you're done. So even though I listed this as a negative, I think for some of you this might actually be a positive. It just really depends on how you look at it. Now, if you're like me, and you just enjoy tweaking and customizing your Linux desktop exactly the way you like it, then you'll probably love Crunchbang++ because it gives you full control over virtually everything. And like I mentioned, because all of its settings are in text files, you can simply back up those text files. Overall, I think Crunchbang++ is an awesome distribution, and I highly recommend that each and every single one of you guys, all of you Linux fans out there, definitely try this distro out. I want to make sure that it gets more exposure because I think it's really sad that virtually no one has heard of this distribution. and it's a great distribution, so definitely check it out. And when you do, let me know in the comments below what you thought of CrunchBang++. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I appreciate that. Make sure you click that like button if you did like this video. That lets YouTube know that you want to see more content just like this, and I'll see you again very soon.